Welcome to the Resilient Path with Fran Evans. Thank you to the ones who are walking this path with me and to those joining for the first time. It is good to have you here. Today's message comes from Genesis 16. As I continue my journey through Genesis, one chapter at a time, I want to remind you that I'm looking at these stories through the lens of relationships, flesh, spirit, and the order of God. Before Genesis 16 begins, Genesis 15 ends with God reassuring Abram. Abram was afraid because he remained childless, and God told him not to be afraid. God promised him descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky. The Bible says, Abram believed the Lord, and it was credited to him as righteousness. Genesis 16 opens with a different focus. It opens with Sarai. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children. This is not the first time we have heard this. Sarai was introduced earlier as a barren woman. By this point, she and Abram had been living in Canaan for 10 years. When Sarai said, "The Lord has kept me from having children," what stood out to me is that Sarai recognized there was a God and that children come from him. She did not blame Abram. She said, "The Lord has kept me from having children." A beautiful woman living with barrenness could not have been an easy burden to carry. Abram was wealthy. They had servants, possessions, livestock, influence, and a large household, yet they had no children. Years had passed. People around them were having children. Life continued moving forward. But the one thing Sarai wanted most remained out of reach. From a human perspective, it appears that Sarai had reached a place of both desperation and acceptance. Her solution was simple. To Abram, she said, "Go, sleep with my maidservant. Perhaps I can build a family through her." Those words stood out to me. Perhaps I can build a family through her. Sarai seems to believe that Hagar can simply have the child and the problem will be solved. She does not search for another woman. She chose Hagar, her Egyptian servant, who had already been living in her household. To me, that suggests Sarai trusted Hagar enough to believe she could build her family through her. And Abram agreed. The Bible does not record any argument. It does not say he pushed back. Perhaps Abram believed this might be the way the promise would come. After all, the Lord had promised descendants, but so far there was still no children. Perhaps he saw his wife's pain and wanted to ease her suffering. Whatever the reason, he agreed. And Hagar conceived. And then everything changed. The Bible says that when Hagar knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Despise is a strong word. To despise someone is to look down on them, to regard them with contempt, to see them as beneath you. The very woman Sarai hoped to build a family through now treated Sarai differently. And Sarai was hurt. The plan that seemed so simple was no longer simple. So Sarai went to Abram and said, "You are responsible for the wrong I'm suffering." When I first read that, I paused, because Sarai was the one who proposed the plan. Yet from a human perspective, I understand why she said it. People do this all the time. When we're hurting, we do not always speak from a place of logic. Sometimes we're overwhelmed by the consequences of our own decisions. Sometimes we wonder why someone did not stop us. Sometimes we look for somewhere to place the blame and the pain. Sarai appears completely unprepared for the conflict her plan created. But what I also notice is that she said to Abram, "May the Lord judge between you and me." She did not call for judgment on Hagar. She brought the matter before God. Sarai may not know what to do with her pain, but she still recognized that God is the one who ultimately judges the situation. Abram responded by saying, "Your slave is in your hand. Do with her whatever you think best." What stood out to me here is that Abram still viewed Hagar as belonging to Sarai's household and under Sarai's authority. He did not defend Hagar. He did not elevate Hagar. He placed the matter back into Sarai's hands. Then the Bible says Sarai mistreated Hagar. We are not told exactly what Sarai did to Hagar, but we are told the result. Hagar fled. That tells us enough. Whatever happened became so unbearable that Hagar chose the wilderness over the household. She would rather run into the desert while pregnant than remain where she was. That is how serious the situation had become. Then the chapter shifts. The angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. He called her by name. Hagar. He identified her. Hagar, slave of Sarai. He asked her where she had come from and where she was going. And Hagar answered, "I am running away from my mistress Sarai." The angel of the Lord told her to go back and submit to her mistress. The angel of the Lord did not simply tell Hagar to go back and submit to her mistress. He also gave her a promise. He said, "I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count." Think about that for a moment. Hagar was a servant. She was an Egyptian woman. She was alone in the wilderness. Yet God spoke directly to her and promised that her descendants would become a great people. The angel also told her that she would have a son and that his name would be Ishmael, because the Lord had heard her misery. The angel even revealed something about Ishmael's future. He would be a wild donkey of a man. His hand would be against everyone and everyone's hand against him. And he would live in hostility towards his brothers. Hagar gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her. You are the God who sees me. For she said, I have now seen the one who sees me. Hagar did not initiate any of this. She was a servant caught in circumstances created by others. Now she was pregnant, alone, vulnerable, and running for her life. Yet God saw her. The angel of the Lord stepped into her situation. Not after everything was fixed. Not after everything was comfortable. Right there in the wilderness. And Hagar responded with some of the most powerful words in Genesis 16. You are the God who sees me. For the first time, we hear Hagar speak about God. And what she remembers most is that God saw her. Not Abram, not Sarai, an Egyptian servant girl. God saw her. The chapter ends by telling us that Hagar bore Abram a son. Abram named the child Ishmael, just as Hagar had been told. Abram was 86 years old when Ishmael was born. When I look at Genesis 16, I see longing, pain, desperation, pride, hurt feelings, conflict, blame, and consequences. I see people trying to solve problems the best way they know how. I see people acting from the flesh. But I also see God meeting someone in the middle of a wilderness. And I see a woman who leaves that encounter knowing one thing for certain. The God of heaven saw her. Once again, this is The Resilient Path with Fran Evans. Stay tuned. Genesis 17, coming soon.